The worst part wasn't when she called 911. It was the moment I realized she genuinely believed she had the right to do it. I was halfway through dismantling the old above-ground pool behind my house, something I'd been planning for months. It was falling apart, leaking underneath, and had become more of a mosquito breeding ground than anything else. The permits were filed, the crew was hired, and the whole process was by the book. I'd barely removed the last vinyl panel when I heard tires crunching gravel. Karen, HOA president, noise patrol, self-proclaimed neighborhood safety captain. She didn't ask. She demanded, "What are you doing to our pool?" She barked, as if I'd taken a chainsaw to public property. I told her calmly, "My pool, my yard, my business." That's when her eyes narrowed and the threats began. Something about unauthorized demolition, disturbing community harmony, and property damage. Then she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "Yes, I need to report a man destroying a pool. He's creating a dangerous situation in a family neighborhood. He's out of control. Please hurry." I just stared at her, stunned. She had no idea I'd kept the receipts, the permits, the footage. And when the cops showed up, they didn't cuff the guy with the toolbox. They cuffed the woman with the clipboard. If I didn't prove I had every right to take down that pool, Karen's lies could have cost me fines, charges, or worse, my reputation in the neighborhood. But I wasn't the one who broke the law. The second she picked up the phone and started spitting words like vandalism and public safety hazard, I knew she was playing a dangerous game. And not just with me. She was using the law like a weapon. One exaggerated claim, one false police report, and suddenly I was the one under investigation for removing something that was mine to begin with. Karen accused me of destruction of property, of creating unsafe terrain, of tearing down a community asset, a pool she never paid for, never maintained, and never had permission to use. Then she went further. She started walking door to door in the neighborhood, telling people I was tearing things apart without permits, claiming she caught me red-handed doing illegal demolition. She handed out flyers, actual printed flyers, warning people that their property values were in danger because of reckless behavior on a shared block. It wasn't just annoying. It was dangerous. Because in a tight-knit neighborhood, one rumor spreads like gasoline. And when people hear police were called, they stop asking questions. They start assuming guilt. I wasn't going to let that happen. I hadn't touched a single thing that didn't belong to me. But Karen? Karen had crossed a line she couldn't walk back over. When I bought the house, I wasn't looking for luxury. I wasn't chasing some dream of pool parties or outdoor speakers or matching patio furniture. I just wanted a quiet corner of the world I could call my own. Something with a backyard, some decent shade, and the freedom to make my life fit me. The pool was just there, a tired, above-ground circle of steel and sagging vinyl, already rusting around the base. The previous owner said it came with the house when they moved in, and they never used it much. "The filter doesn't run like it used to," he admitted, "but if you're handy, maybe you can get it going again." At the time, I didn't care. It wasn't what sold me. I was focused on the workshop, the mature trees, the distance between me and the next mailbox. The house itself was modest, nothing showy, just enough space to breathe. The pool? That was a footnote. For the first year, I left it alone, covered it during winter, skimmed the surface when the mosquitoes got too bold. It wasn't worth repairing, but I figured it wasn't hurting anyone either. I had other priorities, fixing the fence line, replacing the water heater, rerouting the downspouts. But that second summer, everything changed. It started with a leak, just a slow, steady one at first. The water level kept dropping. I figured it was evaporation, until I stepped out one morning and found the soil on the west side soggy and sunken in. One section of the metal frame was beginning to tilt inward, and when I checked the underside, the supports were pitted through with rust. The liner had torn. Water was leaking directly into the foundation of the pool and seeping down into the yard. Worse, I found a section of wood decking that had started to rot where it met the edge of the frame. A carpenter beehive had taken up residence in one of the joists. And when I stepped too close to inspect the damage, the board snapped beneath my boot and sent me halfway through it. That was the moment I decided, enough. This thing wasn't just ugly. It was dangerous. I called in a friend who works in landscaping and construction. He took one look and shook his head. It's not just leaking, he told me. If you wait another 6 months, it could collapse. We ran the numbers. Repairing it would cost more than building a new one from scratch. The electrical system powering the filter was shot. The ladder had warped. The water was a chemical cocktail, and I wasn't willing to swim in it, let alone let anyone else near it. So I made the only responsible decision a homeowner could. I decided to remove it. I did everything by the book. Filed the demolition notice with the city. Confirmed no permits were required for removing a non-permanent above-ground structure. Scheduled a dumpster. Booked a crew to help me dismantle and haul it out safely. I even posted a sign at the side gate for courtesy's sake. And that's when she noticed. Karen. At the time, I didn't know who she was. I'd heard her name floating around the block. A woman who kept the HOA running, who liked things a certain way. Some people called her passionate. Others weren't as kind. But I hadn't had any run-ins. Not yet. The first time I saw her, she was walking her dog past the house, and she stopped dead in her tracks when she saw the pool half drained. I was outside, coiling up a hose. She tilted her head like she couldn't believe her eyes. "Are you getting rid of that?" she asked, already judging. "Yeah," I replied. "It's not safe anymore." Her face twisted. "You can't just remove it." "I can," I said plainly. "It's on my land." I checked the code. She gave a tight, polite smile that wasn't polite at all. "You should have brought it to the board first. We use that pool." I blinked. "We?" She gestured vaguely at the neighborhood, as if the entire subdivision shared one brain. "A lot of us come by and cool off in the summer. It's one of the only pools in walking distance. You removing it creates a void." "A void?" I stared at her for a beat too long. "Karen, I've lived here for 3 years. I've never seen a single person use that pool besides the tree frogs." She didn't even flinch. "Well, that's because we use it when you're at work." That's when it clicked. Karen had been trespassing, probably for years, using my pool, letting others use it, treating my private property like it was some sort of community splash pad. And the second I decided to remove it, I hadn't just changed the yard. I'd broken her routine, her sense of control. That's what this was really about. Not the pool. Power. After that conversation, things escalated fast. She showed up twice the next week. First to warn me that I'd be fined for an unapproved structural change, and then to deliver a printout of HOA removal guidelines. Guidelines that didn't apply to me because I wasn't part of her HOA in the first place. I confirmed that before I even bought the house. The property was on the edge of the neighborhood boundary, technically within the zip code, but not under Meadowbend HOA jurisdiction. There was a map, a clear line. My house was outside it. I tried to explain that to her. She didn't care. She said things like optics and communal impact and setting a dangerous precedent. Then she started showing up with her phone out, recording me while I worked, hovering on the sidewalk, narrating to no one in particular. "He's draining something. That's chemicals. That's probably illegal. He's using tools without protective gear. Someone should stop this. He's tearing it down like he owns the whole place." Imagine that. A man doing maintenance on his own property. Like that's some kind of crime. She started warning neighbors, too, telling them the pool removal was unauthorized, that it could create sinkholes, that it would attract lawsuits if a kid wandered into the yard and fell in. Never mind the fact that I had the entire yard fenced, locked, and marked with private property signs. One neighbor apologized, said Karen was just being careful. But by the end of the week, I could feel the shift. People walking their dogs crossed the street to avoid me. The mom down the block who used to wave every morning suddenly couldn't make eye contact. Karen was poisoning the well, all because I'd taken down something she never owned. The morning the demolition started, she made her move. She parked across the street, arms crossed, filming the whole thing. The contractors were professional, cordoned the area, used a pump to remove the remaining water, started disassembling the rusted shell piece by piece. No noise by elections. No debris beyond the fence line. Karen paced like a vulture. Then, without warning, she walked up the driveway, blocked the path to the dumpster, and started shouting, "You're creating a hazard. This is not city-approved. This is criminal destruction." I calmly pointed to the laminated copy of my permit. She didn't read it. She dialed 911 and lied. told them I was destroying community property, that I'd cut electrical lines, that I'd threatened her with tools. I didn't touch her. I didn't speak to her, but I saw the look in her eyes when she made that call. She wasn't confused. She wasn't afraid. She was playing the system. Because people like Karen don't care about truth. They care about control. The demolition crew showed up at 7:30 a.m. sharp. I met them in the driveway with coffee and a printed-out copy of every permit and zoning guideline we needed to follow. I wasn't taking any chances. We'd scheduled everything down to the hour, pump out the rest of the stagnant water, remove the weakened panels, haul away the frame, and patch the soft ground underneath. The crew was respectful, experienced, and ready to work. Unfortunately, so was Karen. By 8:03 a.m., her Lexus rolled to a slow, menacing stop across the street, hazard lights blinking like it was a crime scene. She stepped out wearing a wide-brimmed sun hat, oversized sunglasses, and what I can only describe as her HOA combat vest. Loaded down with papers, folders, and a Bluetooth earpiece, she kept tapping like she was in a hostage negotiation. She stood at the edge of the sidewalk and watched. Not like a neighbor curious about the noise. Like a hawk watching trespassers on her nest. One of the workers, a guy named Rob, nodded politely as he carried a toolbox across the yard. Karen's lips tightened. Who authorized this? I stepped forward. Calmly. Friendly, even. I did. The homeowner. She took a long breath through her nose, like she was trying to process the concept of someone doing something without her signature on it. You don't own that pool, she snapped. You're damaging a shared amenity. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? That pool has been a fixture of the community for over 10 years. You can't just tear it down without notifying the board. I was stunned. Karen, I've never been in your HOA. I have no legal connection to Meadowbend. That's not how this works, she said. It's about community standards. About preserving neighborhood integrity. No, I said flatly. It's about private property. This is my land. This is my pool. And it's a hazard I'm choosing to remove. You don't have the right. I have a permit. I pulled it from my folder, held it up for her to see. She didn't look at it. Instead, she pointed at the dumpster in the driveway. That's an eyesore, she hissed. I'm filing for visual obstruction. I didn't respond. Neither did the crew. They were already unbolting the first panel of steel. And that's when she snapped. She marched straight into the yard. Past the cones. Past the signs. Past the very obvious "Do Not Enter" work zone tape. She stopped in front of the half-drained pool, planted her hands on her hips, and yelled, "You are destroying neighborhood property. This is vandalism." One of the workers turned to me, confused. Should we stop? No, I said. She's not supposed to be here. You're making a mistake. Karen screamed, pacing back and forth like a stressed-out mall cop. There are kids in this neighborhood. Families. You're creating a drowning risk. In an empty pool, one of the crew muttered. Then she did what no one expected. She stood in front of the backhoe, physically blocked it. I'm placing this project under citizen review, she said. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I laughed once, short and disbelieving. Karen, this isn't a protest rally. This is a permitted project on private land. You can't just stand in front of machinery. I can and I will if it keeps this neighborhood safe from reckless demolition. Rob looked at me. Boss, keep going, I said. She shouted something unintelligible. Then she stormed back toward the street and pulled out her phone. I'm calling 911, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. This is criminal destruction. He's tearing down property that belongs to the community. There's no safety fencing. He's threatening workers. He has power tools out in the open. The dispatcher must have asked if there was a physical altercation because her voice rose. Yes, I feel unsafe. He's yelling at me. He told the crew to intimidate me with machinery. I was 30 feet away. Hadn't moved. Hadn't raised my voice. Karen was standing in my yard, trespassing, blocking construction workers from doing their job, and calling the police on me. The crew froze. One of them sighed. Great. Cops. I shook my head. Let him come. We've got nothing to hide. 15 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. 2 officers stepped out, cautious but calm. They knew how these things went. Karen ran toward them, voice already high-pitched and breathless. That's him, she cried, pointing like she was identifying a fleeing suspect. He's destroying a pool with no permits. I caught him harassing workers and tampering with the water system. The taller officer looked over at me. I raised one hand and held up my permit folder with the other. You the homeowner? Yep. You got ID? I handed it over. He glanced through the paperwork, flipped to the demolition approval, and nodded. Everything looks in order. Karen was already gesturing toward the backhoe. They were swinging that thing at me. I had to jump out of the way. It's a threat to public safety. Rob laughed under his breath. It was parked. The second officer walked the property, inspected the fencing, the signs, the setup. When he came back, he didn't look impressed. There's no crime here, ma'am. Karen stiffened. What? He has permits. The property is fenced off properly. No public access. And you're the one who trespassed into an active work zone. That's actually a problem. She went pale. That's not trespassing. I'm the HOA president. I have the right to inspect. Not here, you don't, the officer said flatly. This house is not under your HOA. The property line is well outside your jurisdiction. Karen blinked. Twice. Her hands dropped to her sides. But the community. This isn't community land, the officer interrupted. This is his land. She looked like her brain couldn't accept the words. She turned to me, confused and furious. You let children swim in that pool. You can't just rip it out. I never let anyone swim in it, I said. You were trespassing. I have footage. You want to talk about safety violations? You climbed my fence with your dog 2 months ago. The officer raised an eyebrow. I can pull the footage right now, I added. It's saved on the drive. Karen started backpedaling. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just thought. You filed a false report, the officer said calmly. You claimed he threatened you. You claimed there were violations. There were none. I was trying to protect the neighborhood. He nodded. You're under arrest for obstruction and filing a false police report. She gasped, literally gasped, like a Victorian widow in a stage play. Me? You're arresting me? I'm the HOA president. He took her by the wrist and began reading her rights. She shrieked, actually shrieked. The crew stood in stunned silence. Then one of them muttered, Didn't see that coming today. Karen was driven away with her clipboard left behind on the grass. The officers apologized to me for the disturbance. I told them it wasn't their fault. They were just doing their job. They laughed and said I had the cleanest paper trail they'd ever seen for a backyard project. The crew got back to work, and I opened the gate, took a sip of cold coffee, and let out the biggest sigh of relief I'd felt in months. The storm had passed, but Karen's mess was just getting started. You could see it on her face the moment things stopped going according to plan. Karen stood there, chest puffed out like she'd already won, watching the officers approach me as if they were seconds away from shutting the project down. She had her phone camera angled, her voice rehearsed, her story tight. He's been threatening me. He's tearing apart the property without HOA permission. He even endangered workers with machinery. That's what she told the police. What she didn't realize was that the first officer on scene had already read through my permits while she was mid-sentence. And when I handed him the full folder, stamped by the city, with timelines, approvals, and names, he didn't need to hear much more. Still, I didn't stop there. I've also got security footage, I said, pulling out my tablet, from 3 different dates. It shows her trespassing through my side gate, using the pool without permission, even bringing guests. That made the second officer stop in his tracks. You have footage of her entering the property, climbing the fence once, using a back gate another time, and one video where she walks right in like she owns the place, drops her towel on my chair, and jumps in. I tapped the screen. Press play. There she was, clear as daylight. Karen, beach hut, sunglasses, lounging in my pool with a glass of wine and someone else's kid splashing nearby. The officer looked at her, then back at me. Did you give her permission to use the pool? Never. He turned. Ma'am, you understand that trespassing is a crime? Karen's voice jumped up an octave. That's not trespassing. He never put up a sign. I pointed. There's a private property, no trespassing sign at the gate. She passed it both times. I've got the footage. Karen's face started to break. She took a step back. This is harassment. You're harassing me. The officer stayed calm. Ma'am, you called 911. You claimed he was destroying property that wasn't his. You claimed he threatened you. He did. He was waving tools around. I blinked. I was holding a screwdriver. He advanced at me with it. The officer tapped the tablet. That's not what the footage shows. Now the second officer was watching, too. Silent. Focused. Then he turned and said something that almost made me laugh. Would you like to revise your statement? Karen froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Ma'am, the officer repeated, slower this time. We need to be very clear. Did this man ever physically threaten you, verbally threaten you, or attempt to harm you or your property in any way? She folded her arms. He made me feel unsafe. Did he threaten you? No, but did he enter your property without permission? No, but did he violate any actual law? She was breathing fast now. He tore down a pool that we all used. Did you have written permission to use it? No answer. Did you file any documents proving shared ownership? Still nothing. That was the moment the switch flipped. The officer stepped aside, had a brief, quiet word with his partner, then turned back to her. Ma'am, at this point, we have evidence that you filed a knowingly false report, entered private property without permission, and interfered with a lawful construction process. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean. I was just trying to protect. You're under arrest for filing a false report and obstruction of a permitted project. She didn't move. Not first. It wasn't until the officer reached gently for her wrist that she finally exploded. You're arresting me? This man is a danger. He lives like a wild animal. He doesn't even attend HOA meetings. Ma'am, please turn around. I'm the president. This neighborhood runs because of me. You're making a mistake. The cuffs clicked shut. The silence afterward was louder than her yelling. The officers led her to the cruiser, still muttering to herself, now panicked. She asked for her lawyer, asked for the mayor, said she knew people, said she would have all of us reported. Nobody responded. The neighbors had started to gather. First a jogger paused, then a couple across the street. Eventually 3 more people stopped near their driveways, hands in their pockets, watching Karen get buckled into the back of a police car like she was being dragged off the set of a soap opera. I stayed quiet, let all play out. After they drove off, one of the officers returned to me. You handled this exactly right, he said. Permits, documentation, evidence. Textbook. I nodded. Didn't think it would come to that. People like her make it come to that, he said. Every time. He paused, then added with a dry smile. Also, that pool footage? Kind of hilarious. I grinned. You want a copy for training? He chuckled, waved it off, and walked back to his car. By the end of the day, the crew had fully removed the pool frame. We filled the soil, leveled the ground, and tamped it clean. What was once a collapsing health hazard was now a flat, safe backyard, ready for new life. Maybe a garden, maybe a fire pit, maybe nothing at all. Whatever it became, it would be mine. No committee, no board, no approval needed. And Karen? She spent the night in a holding cell. Her mugshot made its way to the county website by morning. Charges: filing a false report, trespassing, obstruction of lawful work. The HOA board held an emergency meeting that weekend. Several members resigned. Others apologized. Karen was stripped of her position by Monday. And that pool? That ugly, rusted mosquito swarm mess? It turned out to be the best thing I ever took down. Because it didn't just clear space in my yard. It cleared the air, the lies, the entitlement, the illusion that some people are too powerful to be held accountable. Turns out, the law doesn't care how many board meetings you run or how loud you yell. It cares about facts. And I had all of them. The yard looks different now. Not just because the pool is gone, but because it finally feels like mine. No eyes peering over fences. No shadow of entitlement haunting the gate. Just space. Quiet. Ownership in its truest form. We leveled the ground the week after the arrest. Filled the soft spots, raked the soil, and laid down fresh sod. A few garden beds went in, raised cedar boxes filled with tomatoes, peppers, and sunflowers. I built a small deck off the back porch, just enough for a couple of chairs and a grill. It didn't just feel like a renovation. It felt like a reset. The part that really got me? People started talking again. Neighbors who hadn't so much as waved in months stopped by with compliments. One guy brought over seedlings. Another asked where I got the deck lumber. Someone even offered to help haul gravel for the fire pit I'd been planning. Turns out, Karen hadn't just gone to war with me. She made the whole block walk on eggshells. And when she fell, the eggshells cracked. People could breathe again. Karen resigned the following Monday. No speech. No apology. Just a typed letter left in a mailbox at the HOA clubhouse. Rumor has it, she tried to pressure the board into calling the charges political retaliation. Nobody bought it. One member flatly told her, "You called the cops on someone for taking down their own pool. What did you think would happen?" The arrest record was public. The footage was real. And the truth, no matter how many HOA handbooks she tried to bury it under, floated right back up. Her house sold quietly. She moved a few neighborhoods over, where the HOA is even stricter, if you could believe that. Maybe she'll find people there who mistake her rules for righteousness. Or maybe she'll learn that authority isn't about volume, it's about values. But here, she's a cautionary tale. There's a new HOA president now. Quieter, smarter, stays in his lane. He sent me a letter, not a notice, a letter. Said he understood now why I fought so hard to defend what was mine. Said Karen had been a wake-up call for everyone. He ended the note with a line I'll never forget. "You didn't just remove a pool. You reminded this place what boundaries actually mean." And that's what this whole mess really came down to. Not water, not structure, not vinyl and chlorine and rusted bolts, but boundaries. Knowing where your authority ends. Knowing what belongs to you and what doesn't. Karen thought she could turn a lie into law. That if she acted confident enough, loud enough, official enough, people would fall in line. But the truth doesn't flinch when someone yells. It waits. And when it surfaces hard, like a stone in still water. So yeah, removing the pool was my decision. But removing the lies? That was justice. Because when you try to weaponize the law, when you twist it into a club to beat people with, the truth always floats back up.